Hey guys, Tony here, and I'm here to do another vinyl collection must-have. Um, so, as much as I've been exploring different kinds of bands, more newer bands, more punk and indie underground kind of bands, really I grew up as a classic rock fan, and I'm a child of the '90s. Really, I mean, I also grew up on Nirvana and Pearl Jam and things like that. The whole grunge thing, and a huge, obviously Neil Young, Dylan fan. But growing up, as when I got into music, what I got into first was classic rock, and '60s and '70s hard classic rock, um, and a band that you just can't avoid when listening to classic rock radio and just being into that type of music is Aerosmith. Now, I know Aerosmith is basically one of the most played out um, hard rock bands, classic rock bands that probably ever. I mean, I think if I hear Walk This Way or Dream on radio again, I'd probably scream. I mean, I've heard those songs just too many times. Sweet Emotion, all those songs. But I must say that this album, Get Your Wings by Aerosmith, is probably, will always will be, one of my all-time favorite records. This was their second album after their first self-titled record with Dream On. And this album just really, really rocks. I mean, alright, it opens up with Same Old Song and Dance, which is a radio staple. Everybody probably knows that song. But the second song, Lord of the Thighs, is just classic rock heaven. I mean, it is just, it opens up with like a Walk This Way kind of beat, and then it's totally different. If you've never heard this song, at the first couple seconds, you might think it is Walk This Way. But then the guitar comes in, and it's just the whole thing, and it's just a fantastic song. Then Spaced, which is an out there kind of, not so much a heavier rocker, but it still rocks. It's a little, I don't know, it's just a great song. I don't know how to describe it, really. Woman of the World, another great song by them. SOS, Too Bad, another one. I think a big thing about these songs and what separates them a little bit is more just they're not so played. You don't hear them so much, and just about any album will have songs that you just they're not played on the radio. They're not radio staples. They're not so played out. But something about these tracks, though, I've never gotten sick of them. Train Kept a Rollin', the old Yardbirds tune. They do a rendition of it that is just killer. I'm sure it's also a common one, but it's fantastic. Seasons of Wither, one of my favorite Aerosmith songs, probably of all time. My two favorite songs on this album, or I should say three, are Lord of the Thighs, Spaced, and Seasons of Wither. It's very kind of, I don't want to say it's a ballad, but it's downbeat and kind of a little bit out there, maybe a little bit more experimental for them, but not really experimental. And then closes with Pandora's Box, and another great song. So what you have here is a classic record that is just, from beginning to end, just literally just rocks, and one of my favorites. My copy here, it's actually, the cover's a little beat, but it's still in pretty good condition. A common record. I think people forget just how big Aerosmith was in the '70s and what they were all about. I don't like what they've produced really in the past couple decades, but back in the '70s they had a huge cult following, and especially around the Boston, New England area. Just one of those bands. They were like another Zeppelin in a way. But then obviously it all went to hell, and from just abuse and Steven Tyler. I don't know what the hell he's thinking going on American Idol. I mean, to me that is like the most sellout move possible. But I guess you could say they've sold out years ago. And if it's what he wants to do, good for him, but I don't know. I've seen Aerosmith live a couple times. The first time I saw him was really weak. It wasn't loud at all. It just seemed, I don't know, it seemed kind of tired. For some reason, though, the second time I saw them, which was a couple years later, it was like unbelievable. They actually broadcast the show, I don't know, on a cable network like HBO or something. And they set up. I was on the lawn. It was an amphitheater, and they set up a second stage and came out and played for the lawn, which was cool. You know, I always love when bands do that. I've seen a few bands do that now, which was really neat. And this show was probably one of the loudest shows on the lawn in an amphitheater, and it was so loud my ears rang for like 2 days afterwards. But it literally just, they were killer. It was amazing, the contrast between those two shows. So yeah, I mean, I'm sure everybody's heard of Aerosmith, and if you're not familiar with this record, I highly recommend it. If you're into the whole classic rock blues kind of influence, classic rock, you know, the Zeppelins and the ZZ Tops and things like that, this album is just killer. And I had to do a must-haves on it because it's just one of my favorite records. And I think back in the day, I mean, these guys were it. I mean, this was released in 1974, and I don't think they've produced. I think Toys in the Attic came after this, which I think is really good, but I don't think it. I think it. This is probably their most. It's hard to say. It's probably their most perfect album to me, I think. But there you go, guys. I hope you enjoyed this little video on Aerosmith's Get Your Wings, and please check it out. It's a great album. So take it easy, guys. Thanks for watching.